We're live. We're live. We're live. We're live.
We are live, 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 live. What's
All
up?
right. Very cool. Very cool. Oh God, what is that noise that I'm hearing? I heard all of us like 3 times, guys. Sorry about that. That was really weird.
I don't know.
Hey, supernatural stuff is part of the program tonight, so maybe something's going on in the computer because I talked shit about it earlier. So who knows? The ghosts are mad. But anyway, cool. Welcome back, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We had a short 2-week hiatus there. I was out of town in Orlando catching a concert. Joe's been a very busy bee. So have I. And, you know, we're just happy to be back here for episode 33. Hell yeah.
3-0.
You guys are
people
stuck with us. And that's amazing. And thank you so much for sticking with us through all of our snafus and everything like that. So, because God knows there's enough of them. Even tonight, Joe couldn't get into his Google account on the computer, so he's tuning into us via his Android phone.
I'm basically Skyping on this thing, you know. That's why I'm wearing the shades, because I'm so angry. I don't even want to look at my eye. I'm like, I'm mad.
It's all right. It's okay. Shit happens, as we know. It always happens on this show. So anyway, thanks again for tuning in, everybody. We got a packed show for you tonight. We're going to be talking about Stranger Things Season 3. We're going to be talking about the supernatural, ghost stories, Ouija boards, you name it, we got it. We're going to be talking about my books, and something very cool for you all this month is that my books are on sale, all my zombie books from Permuted Press, but stick around because we'll talk more about that later. And then finally, we are going to pay tribute to the late and great Danny Noble of DTA, good friend of Joseph's, and good friend, family member to many people. So stick around for that as well. I will ask everybody in the chat, anybody here watching in the chat, if you have any cool or weird supernatural stories that you want to share with us, get them ready, put them in the chat, because we'll talk about them when we move into the second segment.
Yeah, if Mickey's watching, he has them. I know he does. I know he does.
And hi to everybody in the chat. Thank you so much for being here. But I just feel like I've been talking so much. Joe, how's it going with you, man? Aside from the Google account.
Yeah, outside of the electrical snafus on this end over here, I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm figuring 99 ways to kill your laptop right now, you know. But yeah, outside of that, that's going to be my laptop's going to be a ghost story soon.
Oh, you know.
Everything is great on my end. I'm very busy with a lot of music stuff's going on. You know, obviously, we're all saddened with the passing of Danny, and we'll talk about that. We'll get into that. But DTA is still here, and we'll talk about that too. I am absolutely elated to be here for episode 30 with you. This is our 30th episode, lady.
I know, we've been doing this for 30 weeks. Well,
yeah. I mean, this all started. It all started on a small table by a pool in Florida, and those episodes, when my laptop feels like coinciding again, those episodes, the early ones will be posted to this page. I'm working on getting the archives up there now. But yeah, so I mean, to kick it off, we have a ton of stuff to talk about here. I think we were going to talk about a particular show that you've been checking out lately, and why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
All right, so you guys know it's coming. I created the little graphic for tonight's episode, and if you were paying attention, you saw the mind flare at the top, so you know it's coming. Stranger Things Season 3. Don't worry, here's a disclaimer. There will be no spoilers aside from obviously what everybody already knows. The monsters are back. If you saw the trailer, you know they're back. So don't worry about it. No spoilers though, guys. We are a spoiler-free zone. And if you don't already know me, we do have some new viewers tonight here for the first time live. If I do spoil anything, typically it's because it's so fucking bad. I don't want you to waste your time, so I'm doing you a favor. But no spoilers for Stranger Things.
Right, no, we don't do spoilers or filler here in our hot dogs. We keep this straight up. So tell me a little bit about season 3, Stevie. Has the show grown in your opinion at all?
I think okay, so the first and second episode kind of didn't hook me immediately. I was kind of like, I don't know, maybe it was because, the kids are growing so fast. So that is usually the problem when you have an ensemble cast of younger people. They're going to change in appearance more than someone in their 30s or 40s or 50s would. You know what I mean? They're going to change in appearance. So shows, films, and things like that, they have to adapt scripts and everything for their growing and maturing cast members. So I would say I feel like things were a little pushed a little forward, but understandably so, because the kids are aging in real life. And now they're teenagers, so you know what's coming, the dreadful teen angst.
Right.
Was there a little too much of that for me? Yes.
Okay. All right.
I feel like, some people were like, oh, it's cutesy. We don't mind seeing, young love and this and that and that. Well, I mean, I don't have children. I don't really care for teenagers. So for me, I don't think it's very cute, and it kind of bothers me a little bit. The teen angst is like,
we don't like cute and fuzzy, okay, people? We don't do cute and fuzzy. This is horror metal, man. Come on now, let's go.
I'm trying to fix my camera. Why am I so fucking fuzzy looking? Hello?
Well, maybe the camera's fuzzy, but we don't do fuzzy any other fuzzy than that.
Nope. You said
See, fuzzy unicorn slippers.
You scared my camera. You're very threatening. But teen angst, drama, and young love aside, I will say the strong points for me of Stranger Things 3 was the addition of new characters. Really enjoyed some of the new guys and gals that have joined the cast.
Right.
And I'm not going to give it away. And as well as I feel like this season is a bit more violent. It's darker.
Awesome.
And the effects are fantastic.
Really?
Yeah, I really think they've kind of stepped it up a little bit. Even when you see stills from season 1 or season 2 compared to season 3, the cinematography is even taken up to the next level in this season. So I really appreciated that. Just from a viewer standpoint, like eye candy alone, just being able to appreciate strong visuals is important to me. I think that the off-color jokes are fantastic. The script was great. You'll go from a scene where someone's dying and then cut to another scene, where Hopper's cracking a joke. And it was a great dynamic. The cast hasn't lost any of their dynamic.
Awesome.
Like I said, the Mind Flayer's back, and he is whatever you want to call it. It is scary. It is a creepo. And I will also say that I enjoyed the emotional ending. And that's all I'll say about that.
Killer stuff. That's awesome. After a third season, it's hard to
keep the momentum.
Well, yeah, it's hard for most of these series to embellish what they had in the first one and run with it and have a running rapport that stays through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons or ramps up and really gets going and takes fruition. So it's very easy to spot when that happens. And from what you're telling us, that is exactly what is happening with this series. And this is something that we should all definitely check out.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. Someone in the chat that is screaming, "Hi, Joe," is Bree.
Hi, Bree. Hi, how are you?
Earlier, Bree and I were on the phone talking about Stranger Things, and she's one of the people that has never actually watched past season 1.
Right.
And I was like, kind of, what? What do you mean? I know it's not a show for everybody. Not everybody is into the coming of age Goonies style sci-fi fun drama, but you know, like I think of movies like The Goonies and other of age tales with such, like, you reflect back on them with such like nostalgia, and you just think of when you were a kid and you and all your little ragtag group of friends, like imagine you guys going through all this and just sticking together and fighting the demons from the upside down. You know, it's a super fun show.
This absolutely brings me back to a book I read years ago that I would love to see immortalized into a movie. And from what it sounds like, it's adopted. It almost has an adopted theme to it. The name of the writer was Dan Simmons, and the book was Summer of Night. And that took place almost like a Stand By Me thing, except it was a monster and not a Stand By Me thing. It wasn't, a murderer. It was a monster. And it was about a bunch of kids, that find this thing. But the way that Dan Simmons displayed this book was so vivid, character-wise, and you could actually smell the grass on a baseball field while you were reading it,
Wow.
and you could hear the baseball cards and the spokes, and and to feel the sun as you're riding your bicycle as a 12-year-old kid again. It really brought you back to adolescence. And if the writers from Dark, from this series, that have actually have nailed that dark theme, and brought all those things to light in a series, especially on Netflix. Who would think? I mean, Netflix is just like...
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, I would say undoubtedly, aside from the obvious, like Orange is the New Black, or,
Right.
The earlier Netflix shows that kind of catapulted them into the streaming spotlight of being able to deliver quality streaming content. Stranger Things is their cash cow.
Yeah.
There's been some rumor that season 4 is going to be the last. I say rumor because you never really can believe what you read online. But the Duffer Brothers, Matt and Ross, who are the creators of this show, they actually said they had written it originally with just 4 seasons in mind. And the reason was that they couldn't justify making bad shit happen to children for longer than 4 years in a row.
Oh my God!
I find that so endearing, but at the same time, it's like, look what they're doing to these fucking kids in the.
I mean, some activist group is going to start up somewhere just for that, I'm sure, because there's an activist group for everything. I mean, if I was like beating up waffles in my house, and be a team of them out there, because you shouldn't beat up waffles. You know what I mean? It's bad. But anyway, because there's a squirrel again, Stevie, and I'm chasing it.
Okay.
It just always seems that there's a team of specialists that come in to identify the problems with that and say, oh, you can't be. Well, look, it's a fucking TV show, so get over it. And it's a great one at that. It's a great series. So kudos to the gentlemen, the brothers, on an excellent season 3.
Oh, absolutely. And like I said, I think people who are fans of the show will really like a lot of callbacks to the first and second season. There's a ton of them. I think people will really enjoy the continued, one-liners and the dialogue and the cast. I think it's going to be really great. So if you haven't watched Stranger Things 3, get to it, watch it. You can do it. I binged it in 2 days because my husband forced me to sit on the couch, and every time I would doze off, he would just get up, walk around the room. You can't fall asleep. That was me the last 2 evenings, was watching an 8-episode season of a TV show with hour-long plus episodes. But guess what? It was worth it. It was a lot of fun, and it was great. We have a lot of great stuff coming in the chat. We have so much that don't send any more because I'm going to keep reading it. But thank you so much, specifically to Joe Compton and Mickey for sending all this great stuff. So without further ado, we are going to move into the second segment here that we have to talk about, and it's ghost stories.
Oh my God, this is going to be like, we're going to have to do this again. We're going to have another episode for this, because I have guests that want to come on for this, and we could do this for like 3 days, and I have more stories than anyone probably should have for this, which is another reason that I love supernatural movies. I live some of this stuff. It's kind of crazy.
Hey, for anybody that doesn't know, Joe, what's your favorite movie?
I'm gonna let you tell it because I don't want it's The Conjuring, but I don't want to tell everybody. So you can tell them it's The Conjuring. It's The Conjuring. It's The Conjuring. I think it's it would be about Sasquatch if he was around like for the movie, but he's not. So my favorite movie is The Conjuring. Okay, and he's about Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are demonologists. It's okay, and they are awesome people that are no longer with us, but they were awesome people when they were here, and they were real people. I mean, they were, legitimate demon hunters. They were, they performed exorcisms, and they were really seriously doing this stuff. And they have artifacts and evidence and all kinds of stuff. And you could choose to look at it any way you like. I try to perceive things in a very practical manner, the practicality of it, the realism of it. And could these things be faked? Yeah. Would somebody go to the lengths that they did to no, I'm sorry, but no, there's too much of it. And there are so many things. So, I could talk for 3 days about this. Okay. And we haven't had an episode in like 2 weeks. So my tongue is firing out of my mouth here faster than I can keep up with it. But so, yeah, I have had them. I've had supernatural experiences, but I'm going to let you go, Steve. Go ahead.
I will go ahead and we'll start off with a couple stories from the chat here from Mickey and the other chat. And so one of Mickey's stories that he has kind of brought up before was that he was actually on the phone with you,
yes,
Joseph, and he was in the same house that they took a picture of a ghost with wisping smoke.
Yeah.
Room that nobody had been smoking in. He said that he was on the phone with you, painting a room for about 10 minutes or so. And then on the other side of the room, a board fell off the wall for no reason. In addition to that, Mickey said that in an apartment that he rented, they did a seance. Everybody heard or saw something different than him. What he saw was the hand-blown glass handle. The flame was dancing on the ceiling and formed into a hooded figure, which turned and looked at him. After the seance, there was a very loud noise in the bathroom, like a dog scratching on the floor. And he was on the phone with a friend at the time, and he told his friend, if I don't come back in 2 minutes, please call the police. That's some pretty scary stuff to think about when especially like if you're alone somewhere and you've just done something where you feel like you've maybe opened a gate or a door to another realm of some sort. And we've all seen enough fiction and horror movies and things like that to where who knows what comes over onto the other side.
Okay, so yes, that is very true. And speaking of portals, if you're into this stuff at all, if you believe in it, then please hear what I'm about to tell you, because this is the truth, people. Ouija boards, absolutely portals to the other side. They work, they're real, they're legit. What ends up happening is you have to close them and cleanse them and everything else when you're done with these things. And people use them like toys, and they don't realize that there are forces out there that are willing to come across on their own volition when they can, as quickly as they can. And they're looking for any way to do that. One of the fastest ways that happens is you open the portal and, they peek through, and you're feeding them information about somebody that you think they are, and they're going to roll over it. Yeah, I'm Aunt Mabel. Yeah, that's me. Yep.
Yeah, sure. I'm your old childhood friend Simon. How are you?
Right, exactly. You know what I mean? And it's all of a sudden it's Jody in the window with pig eyes, glowing red eyes, and seriously, this shit happens, people. And you really got to be careful with Ouija boards. They're not fucking toys. They're not to be played with. It's serious shit. And yes, Mickey was on the phone with me when that happened. And I'm telling you, just from the sound of his voice, there was a chill that went up my fucking spine. And there was an audible pause on the phone. And he said, someone just touched my shoulder and there is no one in the fucking house. This is Mickey as a grown man. Mickey, I've known him for 30 years at least. And I'm telling you, Mickey is not a little dude. Mickey is 6'4". He's a big strapping dude. And, we're not like pretty much afraid of anything because we're pretty stupid. Well, I am. I don't know about Mick. Mick's a little smarter than I am. I love you, Mick. But we are pretty much the same guy, and these things happen. And all of a sudden, you turn into a 12-year-old girl because it's for real. It's really hard. Mickey was absolutely scared in that house. And I've had these feelings like I have a sixth sense with things. I don't know why I have this, but I'm sensitive to this stuff. And I can walk into a place, I'm like, I'm not hanging out here. There's this is a little weird for me, I don't want to stay in certain areas for that reason, and I understand these things, but Ouija boards are definitely not to be played with. And if you open a portal, you need to close it, because if you don't close the portal will stay with you until you are dead. Okay, I'm just telling you, because that's the way. If you believe in this stuff, then you should believe in that.
Now, before we get into Joe Compton's story, just to give I'm curious, Joe. Since you are older than me and you've been in New Jersey a lot longer than what I lived there, did you ever hear of there's like a haunted hotel in Cape May?
Yes, there is.
I don't know if you know much about it. So, and of course, if anybody doesn't know, Joe's my brother-in-law. He's married to my sister. So my aunt, Loretta, for anybody who doesn't know her, she's awesome. She's about 4 foot.
Love her.
And a little bit taller than Joe. No,
because everybody's taller than me. I know.
She had said that they had taken like a weekend trip or something down to Cape May many, many years ago, and that they went through this haunted hotel, and they were like taken up to the floor where the supposed ghosts would be seen and everything like that. And my aunt, she has a healthy disbelief in some of it, but for the most part, she believes in this kind of shit. Right. And she said that they walked through the hall and she felt this presence go through her.
Yep.
And she was violently sick, violently puking, probably coming out both ends. She said until the next day. She was violently sick, like as if something was trying to get out of her, is how she described it. And I just always thought that was kind of creepy because, full disclosure, I'm a healthy skeptic. If you want to believe it, believe it. Who the hell am I to say that you shouldn't? I personally don't believe in the supernatural, but I always find it very interesting reading and hearing about people's experiences, because I like to challenge myself and come up with what's the reason for this. You know what I mean? And that's just something I enjoy. I'm not poking fun at anybody, nothing like that, guys. I wouldn't be talking about it if I didn't find it entertaining. So tell me real quick, Joe, what do you know about that hotel, and what do you think of Aunt Lorette's experience?
There are a lot of places in New Jersey that are haunted. I can recount at least 20 places that are haunted. That particular hotel was built in the 1800s, and there was a lot of rum runners and bootleggers that went through there, a lot of early mobsters that went through there, and a lot of people that were shady at best. So with that kind of staining, there was a lot of controversy down there. I mean, there were people that were murdered. It is absolutely steeped in history. Okay, so with all that stained on its memory, there's obviously now there's two different types of haunts. Okay, one haunt is a residual. A residual haunt is kind of like a record player, of somebody that, does the same things in death that they did in life. It's a cycle. Like if they walked from their bedroom to their kitchen in the morning to make coffee, in death they walk from their their bedroom to their kitchen to make coffee in the morning as well. That's a residual haunt. It's like a record that's just not broken. And sometimes you're able to tell these people that they need to pass on, that they're not gone yet.
Is from like what you've read and learned, that because they're in some sort of purgatory?
It's just that they don't realize that they've passed on. Some people don't realize that they've passed on, which goes to the second type of haunting, where they do realize that they have passed on and they are still here for other reasons. Some of those reasons are good. Some of those reasons are not. Those are called intelligent haunts. Now, an intelligent haunt is where you have telekinetic energy. Things are being moved. Things are being misplaced. Things are disappearing and then reappearing in other places. Doors are opening and shutting, windows and so forth. Then you get in from there. You go into poltergeist activity, which is that times two, kind of a little heavier. And from there, it gets a little darker, and you don't want to mess with any of that. Trust me, you want to stay away from that shit. So what you have in that hotel is basically a mixture of all three. And it is a very, very bad place to go. You don't want to go in there, especially for people that are sensitive to this stuff and pick it up. You don't want to, I could feel it from the outside, a mile away. I mean, this place is just a beacon for shit. And what happens is, when you have something like that, that's that stained in life, the afterlife sees it too, because it's like a beacon. It has that much, whether albeit negative or positive energy, and they see it. And it's like a moth to flame thing, and they're drawn to it. And it's not just on one side, it's on all. So that's an eclectic mix of things going on there. I don't know what the answer to fix that place is, man, but if you go down there, I'm not going to name it by name, but if you go there down to Cape May, I don't even know if it's still there. If it is, go down there with caution. Use caution. Listen, you don't have to believe in this stuff, okay? It believes in you, all right? And that's part of the problem, This isn't like voodoo. If you don't believe it, well, this is, they're here, all right? Whether you choose to believe it or not, because I was just a skeptic as anybody. And I've had more than one instance on a few different accounts, ranging from very light to very dark. Okay, and it's no fun on that end of the spectrum, and it's not something you want to tamper with. Okay, but with that said, I mean I could talk about this for days. It's one of my favorite subjects. Obviously, I've read extensive literature and novels and books, and watched thousands of hours of footage, and just my whole life I've been a connoisseur of this, and not because I want to have an instance, but because I want to know what's on the other side, Right. And as a believer, the skeptic in me is saying, well, if it's so positive, why don't we have evidence now? Why don't we have concrete evidence by now?
Mickey said that a couple of years ago, his mother and her friends from high school went to this specific hotel and said that it was definitely haunted.
It is.
Now, let me ask your opinion of something, because you said something very interesting. It's not like voodoo,
right?
Where if you don't believe in it, it's not real. Right. What about people that, for example, they challenge haunted areas? So this brings me to Joe Compton's story that he shared in the chat. He grew up on the Pacific Coast, and there was a defunct amusement park called Marineland.
Yes.
And
yes.
Where wow. It was a large lighthouse tower, where it was said that the lady in white guarded. So that him and his friends would get together to try to find the one spot across the way that was said to be able to see her circling the tower's ledge on a clear night. Anytime they would go, they would take someone new, kind of like an initiation ritual, get them drunk or stoned,
Right.
freak them out by claiming to see something, you know, mess with their head. But he said that no one ever saw her. So you believe 100% in these things.
Yes.
What about that situation? Do you feel that the place wasn't actually haunted, or do you feel in certain situations that entities, be them evil or good, that they pick and choose who they make contact with?
To a point. I mean, when I've seen people, go into a field with a moose in it and taunt the moose, and the moose just looks at them and like, whatever, dude, and walks away.
Right.
I've seen people walk into the same field and taunt a moose on a different day, and it's a different moose, and get the horns, and get like run over by a moose. Okay. So the old adage is, if you fuck with the bull, you get the horns. You know what I mean? And that's the truth. And it's like anything else. It may, for whatever reason, not want to be bothered that day. And, there's no rhyme or reason, and there's no listed step to attract these things or make these occurrences happen. They happen for whatever reason that they happen. Maybe it's chance or just timing, whatever, what have you. I believe that most of the time that these things are seen or heard of or around are because there are people near enough that can see them and want to see them. Of course, I want to see that. I would love to see something light, not bad, something light, right?
Right.
I have seen numerous things on different accounts over the course of my time. And what Joe is seeing to me sounds like the lady in white would be a residual haunt. If she's guarding it, she's doing something she did in life. Sometimes it's right before death. Maybe she jumped from that tower and she was just reliving that moment over and over again. It's like being stuck in a loop, you can't get out of it spiritually until somebody frees you from it, or, time goes on and it just stops, whatever, what have you. I don't know. I'm on this side, I can't see,
Right.
but I that's what I would speculate. Again, there are sentient haunts out there that are looking for people to come and taunt them. And they come in as mild as a lamb, and you'll never know the difference until you're, in so far over your head that you don't know how to get out. And I am telling you this from firsthand experience, okay? Firsthand experience. There are things that you don't want to mess with, things you don't want to play with, things that you shouldn't know about, So be very careful when you're traversing these things. And Chrissy and I, who is Stevie's sister, my illustrious and very beautiful wife, Chrissy and I, were down in New Orleans, and we actually went on a ghost tour. And we went into a cemetery that contained the bodies of the Voodoo Queen. I'm not mentioning her name, and her husband. You can look up who the Voodoo Queen was.
Can I ask why you don't mention her name? Is it because
I don't want to invoke her spirit?
Of her? Okay. I was just curious.
I had a voice box in my hand, and a voice box works on electromagnetic static, and it's called a static box. And what it does is allows phrases to be picked out of the static. Okay. Most people think this is like a charlatan thing. It's just bullshit. It's not real. The things that were coming across on this box when I was in that cemetery were so clear and so real that I was in a group of 15 other people, and I felt like I was the only person left on earth. There was a cold chill on me and this was a hot night in New Orleans, which, Stevie, you're from down south. That heat.
We go to New Orleans every year.
Right.
I've been to New Orleans at least once during all 4 seasons throughout the year, typically the fall. But definitely the time of year that you went, no, there's no such thing as cold chills in.
And there was exactly. I mean, this thing was just hanging on me, and it was like at first it was freezing. I mean, I actually stood and I was looking for. I'm going. Is anybody else cold? No, nobody's cold. And the box started talking. And one of the things the box was telling me to do was switch. Okay, switch with them. Switch places with them. Okay,
kind of creepy.
Yeah, and I mean, this thing was talking, all right, and there's no other way to say it. You can believe me, you can disbelieve it, you can do whatever you like, but I'm telling you, this thing was fucking talking to me, and I'm like, you got to be shitting me. A half an hour later, my wife had an experience in another cemetery. We were doing cemetery tours, and to this day, it's even hard for Chrissy to talk about it. And Stevie, you can ask her about the last cemetery on that tour, and she'll tell you. Maybe we'll have her on one night to tell the story. That would be awesome. But there are things out there that you don't want to mess with, you know. And I have had several at least. I put it this way: I've had at least 15, 20 experiences over my time, and they range. I mean, they range from my own parents to other things.
Now, we have a question from the chat, Joe, because I have never, but have you ever been to Gettysburg and either experienced the ghost there or heard of the powerful experiences that do occur there?
Oh my God. I am absolutely going to Gettysburg. No, I haven't been there personally yet, but I am going there because that is one of the places as a haunted area that I would want to go. Now, if you're familiar with battle scenes and battle sites, one of the sites in New Jersey is a place called Jockey Hollow, and they do an encampment. An encampment is where you have soldiers dressed up in period garb, and they come in and they actually do an encampment, which was one of General George Washington's encampments, you know, from that period of time. And they just imbibe the whole thing in dress and in gear and the way they cook and the way they do things. It's all done based on that period, and they don't bring in like radios and shit like that. It's all based on that period. Okay. I was walking through the woods with a friend, and we were going to this encampment on the first day, and they hadn't really opened yet. It was early. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. But it was an awesome day, and he and I jumped out, wanted to go up and check this place out. So we got coffee, and we did a little hike through the woods. It was an awesome day, nice day. And we got to a point in the woods, and there were two soldiers from the encampment walking down. And we had asked them, what time the encampment was open because they weren't supposed to be here yet. And they just said, well, the camp is that way. And we said, okay. And we walked in out of the woods up to this encampment. It was about a mile away. And when we got there, there was a woman at a table take your name and your registration form and all that shit.
Right.
And we walked up, and she goes, I said, well, what time did they get here? And she's like, who? And I said, the rest of the soldiers. She's like, they're not due here for another, at least another 8 to 10 hours, but you're more than welcome to check out the camp. I said, well, we just passed 2 in the woods. She goes, they weren't with us.
Huh. So
these guys
like forest creeps, like trying to find young men, or
these guys were not there. They're not supposed to be there. There's nothing within 5 to 10 miles of this place. It's all just fucking woods.
Right.
So their garb, and I remember remarking to my friend just how amazingly accurate their garb really was. Right down to the shoes that had holes in them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they were a little too dressed. That's one instance out of 20, 30, 40, 50. Okay. Just to give you a taste.
Oh, of course. And you'll have to, I swear, you should just let me write up an experiences by Joe book for you. Ghostwriter, pun intended.
I see what you did there.
For the record, I hate puns. That was very hard for me to do. So I hope you all enjoyed it. But
I
anyway,
did.
we got another question, and then unless anybody else has anything more to add to this ghost and supernatural segment that we've got going on here, because it's been a fucking fun time.
Oh, awesome.
So, have you ever, and this is coming directly from the chat, have you ever heard of the band Bell Witch?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware, and this is coming from Compton, he wants to know, did you ever hear of the album? It was like here, let me try to find it in the chat. Sorry, guys. It was an hour and a half long one song album entitled Grim Reaper. They were,
It's noise.
I'm sorry?
It's noise. If I'm, go ahead. I know.
Yeah. So evidently, one of the members died, for anybody that doesn't know, and the surviving member used never before heard music and sounds that the deceased member had created and incorporated it into a song as a type of haunting moment within the music.
I do know what he's talking, and it's creepy as hell. It's probably one of the creepiest things you'll ever listen to. Seriously, yes, I do. Joe, I do know, and that is frightening shit.
Joe also said that we should all do a live broadcast together at Gettysburg.
Oh, all right. You know what?
I would.
I'm going to be planning.
Honestly, guys, I would scare all the ghosts away.
No, they love Stevie. They love you. Even the unicorn ghost would come and say hi to you.
None of them want to talk to me ever in my whole life. Bree and I were actually discussing ghosts and all that and the supernatural and everything earlier today. And
is she a believer?
I don't think she's she's in disbelief, but I also don't know that she's not a skeptical. I don't think anyone is as skeptical as I am. However, it's been a fun segment. And like I said, I'm not making fun or poking fun. I really enjoy hearing this type of shit. I love all horror, whether it be fiction, nonfiction, whatever.
But we have a show to do, and we must plug forward.
Yeah. Thank you guys for your questions.
Awesome segment.
For sharing. Also, Mickey said that he will also go to our Haunted Gettysburg podcast. So.
Yes, he will. No, Mickey, you'll be part of it. You'll be there.
Yeah, man. We'll have to really seriously consider this because I'm overdue for a trip up north anyway. So,
all right, then you know what? I'm going to get started. I'm putting something into works for late fall. Let's see what happens. Okay, people.
Okay, so moving on. It's gonna be short and sweet. Nothing crazy or too in depth because if you know me, you know I don't really like to talk about myself. So back at the beginning of the episode, I had let everybody know that my Polluted Press novels, The Breadwinner, its follow-up, Haven, and then the conclusion of the series, All Good Things, the Breadwinner trilogy is on sale for Christmas in July. So you can actually right now pick up a copy of The Breadwinner, which is the first book in the series, for free. It fucking doesn't cost you anything. So why would you not just download it for your fucking Kindle or your iPhone or your Android or whatever the hell you're reading shit on these days?
Right.
It's free. Just download it. Leave me a fucking review because I'm awesome. And
you are awesome,
or I could suck and you can just tell me how much I suck. But hey, reviews, they help. But and then Haven, which actually I have a Haven mouse pad here from
oh, that's awesome.
Because I used to, back when I was more active in the community and everything, I would go to table days and make appearance at local conventions or even as far as Atlanta. And, I'd make an appearance. So I'd have little goodies like this little guy to give away. And that's my sole surviving mouse pad. And it's mine. No one can.
If you fight Stevie on that, you'll be a ghost story. So don't fuck with it.
Yeah, Haven is 99 cents. And the final book in the series is All Good Things. That's the conclusion of the trilogy. And that is also 99 cents. So for $2, less than $2, you could own the Breadwinner trilogy.
That is killer.
By yours truly. Now, a little bit of background information about the books. They were my debut novels that I ever wrote, even before I was a published author by an actual publisher. I had self-pubbed The Breadwinner. and Haven as well, because I kind of wrote them one right after the other, and got picked up by Permuted and wrote All Good Things. Released, they re-released the first two, released the third one for me. And so, I mean, these books have been around for a couple of years. They're nothing brand new. You may have heard of them, you may not have heard of them, but they're fun. They were fun for me to write, and I genuinely enjoyed diving into the realistic scenery in the novels. Now, I say realistic because I don't like using the names of real places or real people or things like that, especially being local, and the book was written from a local perspective. So all the places in the books, they are real places, they are real cities, they are real businesses and things like that, but I've just changed up the names because I didn't need anybody being weird with me and fucking telling me they were going to sue me or something. Except for Target. I mean, like, what, Target doesn't give a fuck if I write about them. Hey, it's free advertisement.
Yeah.
But you
Walmart
know,
would love it.
right? So I just really enjoyed writing it from, this is happening in the sleepy little corner of Northwest Florida, and the zombie apocalypse is happening, and it's not so much about the zombies as it is these regular everyday people. I mean, you have people ranging in age from 16 years old all the way up into their 50s or older, you know, regular people that have no experience with fighting, no experience with weaponry, aside from, you know, maybe a couple of cops. And it's everyday people just fighting to survive. And, you know, the title of the series is the Breadwinner Trilogy, because it's about, you know, when you think of the breadwinner, you think of the person that provides, regardless of gender, regardless of age, regardless of any defining characteristic, they provide for the family. And be that your natural born family or the family you choose or the family you find yourself in at the end of the world, there's always going to be that breadwinner, and it may not always be who you think it is. And that's really all I'll say for that. It's been pretty well received for the most part. I think over the years people have enjoyed it, and it's a little fun little series that I love to look back on, and I'm really glad they put it on sale so that I could get it into the hands of some new readers. So like I said, pick up the first book for free. You can pick up books 2 and 3 for $2. That's
oh my God, that's amazing.
$2, thanks. And I don't even get the full fucking $2, so I don't give a shit. But anyway, also, if maybe, you know, a traditional trilogy is not what you're looking for, I do have another published title with Permuted. I don't believe that one is on sale. I probably should know these things about my own books, but I don't believe that one's on sale. It's called Never Say Die. It is an anthology of 5 short stories that I wrote. Each story is set in a different time, in a different place, with a different apocalypse. And they have really nothing in common. There's no, like, when you watch like an anthology film or something, there's no connecting link between any of them. It's just for you to experience the zombie apocalypse in 5 fun and refreshing ways. So I hope you guys check that one out too. And I'll put my website in the chat for everybody. And
Awesome.
to answer a couple questions, the sale is going on through the end of July. Christmas in July. Yay, I love Christmas.
Yay.
So anyway, thank you for letting me rant and talk about myself for a little bit and shamelessly plug my writing. And now we will move on to our 4th and final topic of the evening. I know we're running short on time, but we got to finish. We got to fit this in. And that is the late and great Danny Noble of DTA, who just recently left the world. And I'll let Joe bring us into that one.
Danny. Danny was the vocalist for DTA for probably close to 15 years, you know, on and off. And a very, very, very close personal friend of mine. I had a knock at my door in 98, I hadn't been playing the drums in a metal band for about a year at that point. And it was this kid named Jay. And Jay, I'm referring to as Jay Swinson. And he was the first guitar player for DTA, which was Anertic back then. I answered the door on crutches. And I had a broken right foot. And I did an interview with him there. And I said, all right, you're in. And he said, okay, but how are you going to play with a cast on your foot? I said, well, I have 2 feet. I have a left foot too. So we went to the studio 3 days later, and we wrote with another bass player, Jason Wagner, who was the original bass player in the band. And the three of us got together and began forming the beginnings of DTA. From there, we got 2 other members. We got a vocalist and another guitar player that came in. And through those 2, the vocalist was not really down with what we were doing and grew apart quickly. And the guitar player that we brought in, Randy Rodriguez, knew Danny Noble. And he said, I got this guy. And back then, there was only a couple of bands doing the stuff that we were doing anyway. I mean, we were flying the thrash flag here in New Jersey in the mid-'90s when nobody was touching it. Nobody was touching metal, really. There was no metal except for the underground stuff. And everybody, if you saw another metalhead and you said, hey, no, I'm not, no, they're running, no, because it was all underground and nobody wanted to know anybody. And there was no unity. There was no nothing. So, we were playing shows where they were having like sit-ins with, flower power and shit. And here we come destroying a joint. And Danny was with us for a while. But Danny was a dual-fold vocalist. He sang with a great high vocal, nasty high-pitched vocal, and a great low growl, something that wasn't being done a lot back then. Not to say that we were innovators or of any shape or form, but Danny was doing...
He found a way to make himself stand out from the pack.
Yeah, he did.
Especially in such a... Not to sit here and say, oh, metal is a saturated market, but
it is, though.
Where I grew up and where you live now, I spent 20 years of my life in New Jersey.
Right.
Grew up on metal. Metal is a huge lifeblood of the tri-state area. And that scene up there is very crowded. It is a very saturated market. And if you can find a way to make yourself stand out, which is what Danny did, that's admirable.
Thank you. Well, I mean, at that point, Stevie, there was a lot of grunge in the area and a lot of stuff that was going on that wasn't metal. And it was very hard for us to get shows. We were getting grouped in with these bands, that were like Alice in Chains, moreover. And, everybody wanted to be Nirvana. And, kids didn't know how to play their instruments. They were just throwing these bands together and running into places. Yeah, we're a band, man. And,
right.
And we're going in there, thrashing our asses off. And, people are looking at Danny like, who the hell is this guy? He's got this weird vocal style. He was likened to Exodus a lot. And the low stuff was like an older, younger Chuck Billy kind of thing. And, we did a lot of shows with Dan. We did the Stone Pony with Nuclear Assault, which was a great gig. That was a lot of fun. We did the Starland Ballroom, the last show. Now, Adrian, is Adrian still in the chat?
I haven't actually seen Adrian tonight at all.
Okay.
I don't think he joined us this evening, which is, kind of sad. I miss my little Irish friend.
Well, I'm sure he's gonna have tons of stuff to say, ghost stories and everything else. So we'll have him on.
No.
Okay. He actually bought No Rest in Peace for me, and that's a disc that Danny Noble was on. Danny did 2 CDs. He spanned 2 CDs with us. Which was the sophomore was the No Rest in Peace disc, and the graduation for him would have been Invidious, which I'm going to reprint. I know we're short on time, so I'm trying to push through this quickly, and it's hard to encapsulate so many years as a friend and a brother, and I'm another musician. There's a bond that forms that's very hard to break. And Danny, unfortunately, had to leave the band due to back issues back years ago. And we went on, and we had another vocalist come in, Dave, who was amazing, and we love Dave too. but Danny was, you know, an original member of the band, and you know, he was just there through all the crap that we went through to get to a certain point where metal started to sweep back in.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he missed a lot of that heyday coming back, and he was absolutely elated to be here again with us, and we were very poised and ready to go back out and do shows with Danny. And I mean, we were going to start the writing process again. These things will come to pass. Unfortunately, Danny,
I never had the pleasure of, I never had the pleasure of meeting what sounds like an amazing guy before he left us. So I just have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
Just like a mini interview, and just to kind of let people know what kind of guy Danny was and what, how music impacted his life. I mean, what would you say, you guys were friends for years.
Yeah.
What would you say was Danny's favorite part about being in a band? Like, what did music do for him in his life and being a part of a band?
Danny and I were very alike in this respect. It was a place of escape. It was a place of enjoyment. It just puts you in a different place, when you find the right pieces to the puzzle and they fit perfectly, it and it locks, and you realize that some guys realize what they have in front of them and some guys don't. And when you have that chemistry and it's locked in front of you and you realize it, the effect was what Danny and I had in DTA. So yeah, Danny knew, what this was, and I'm of like type, and we wrote it, and that was one of his favorite things was the live element. He loved being live. I mean, he was very quiet, very reserved in rehearsal. Danny was not a big, huge talker, half the stuff he would say, nobody under fucking stood. We always said,
fucking guy.
Oh, we were, brothers in every true sense of the way. And, we busted each other's chops incessantly. I mean, we were just constantly never serious together in that aspect, but the love was always there. And, and the respect, obviously. And Danny was, I brought Adrian up for that reason. Danny is actually on the Invidious CD. After, well, he was on the Invidious CD. The song Invidious we were just cutting our teeth with that song when Danny left the band. We were just getting the album done. And what happened was we did a live show with Powerman 5000. Unfortunately, that was the only Starland show that Danny did with us. And that was like the catalyst for DTA to become, whatever we were, at that point, without him. And I took a live track from that and immortalized it on the No Rest in Peace CD because Danny and JD, the bass player, I wanted them represented live in a live fashion, so you understood who they were that way. And I incorporated a Ghost track on there, and oddly enough, I called it a Ghost track, and now, unfortunately, Danny's no longer with us, but he is here in spirit that way, and in his name, we're going to continue on with DTA. We're going to eventually, probably write some new songs together.
Amazing.
Thank you. We're going to be doing a memorial show for him very soon. I'll have all the details on my page. And I'm going to be reprinting the Invidious CD, in its entirety. I'm going to do the full package. We owe Danny that. And I want him represented that way in death as he was in life. So
of course. And, and I really like the fact that you did include a raw live track of him on the album. Because like you said, number one, playing live was his favorite thing.
Loved it.
But there's something to be said about live music, whether it's metal or a DJ on an EDM stage or, just an acoustic set. There's something to be said about live music, and it speaks to you on such a deep level. And when you have a singer or a drummer, a singer, a guitarist, a bassist, somebody on the keys, when you have a musician that wears their music, you can hear it in their face looking at them. That says a lot about that person and about that musician. And, you know, one of the images that I included for tonight's show was Danny singing live on stage. And it's one of those photos where you can look at him and you can see it. You can say, I can hear it. Even if you've never heard what DTA sounds like, you can hear that it mattered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can see it. I mean, in his posture. Live, you got to know Danny live, the real Danny live on the stage. I mean, that's who he was. He was very quiet in life otherwise. Danny was like a father figure to a lot of people, but for some reason, he listened to me. I don't know what it was, you know, and Danny was, he's a big dude, you know. I said, well, I used to laugh when I said, "Damn, one day you're gonna get pissed off and just slaughter me." I know it, you know what I mean? Because I'm crush my little head, and that would be it. And, you know, like a little fly away. And you know, but Danny was, I mean, he wasn't a big dude. He was a little taller than I was, not much, but he was, you know, a big strapping guy, and you know, he was just a very quiet dude, and you didn't know him until, like, you know, I got to know him. Well, we go to shows. We would hang out at shows together, and you know, we're standing in line. I mean, out of nowhere, I want a hot dog. I'm like, yeah, we've been alive for like 3 hours. I'm like, damn, there's no. What do you want? I want a fucking hot dog. All right, so we leave a line and go get a hot dog. You know what I mean? We're in the studio. We're writing records. I brought this up to you the one day. I said, Dan, what do you think about the third track? I mean, should we polish that piece up? I want to pet a dolphin. Oh, all right, because that's important now, you know. And that was Danny. It was just.
Well, you know what? That reminds me of somebody else I know, Squirrel, and that guy.
Which is why,
over here.
Which is why him and I, you know, got along so very well together. I mean, we were both kind of nuts, and you know what? I miss him. I miss him dearly, and I will always miss him.
Yeah.
And I hope wherever he is, he can hear it, and just know that we love him very much, and we're going to see him all soon, you know?
Yeah, that's awesome. And I really appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight, taking a couple of moments to just let us honor Danny on our show. You know, great musician and a really great friend to Joe, and a friend of Joe's is a friend of mine. And with that, Danny Noble, like I said in my article, you left an impact, something that we all should strive to do before we go. And you guys can check out the heartfelt article on Danny Noble on the Lunatic Serenade, which is horrormetalsounds.com. I put the link in the chat, so if you guys want to check that out, please do. And again, a big thanks to Rich and Ken over at Horror Metal Sounds for getting that article up there lightning fast.
Yeah.
You know, it was within days of his passing. It was a great tribute to him, and a great favor to Joe and, you know, the rest of Danny's friends and family. And again, thank you guys for letting us take the end of the show to, you know, honor a great dude.
Stevie, I really want to extend a huge heartfelt thanks to Ken and the guys at Horror Metal. His family contacted me, and they were in tears on the phone. She was in tears when she told me that they were very, very honored by that and what you guys have done. And it was a huge thing for them to have been part of it. And they love what you've done for Danny. And I can't thank you guys enough for taking the time to honor a local metal band and a very great friend of mine in passing. So thank you guys so very much for that.
Of course, like I said, a friend of Joe's is a friend of mine. And with that, we're a couple minutes over, but I'm sure everyone will forgive us. We've had a lot to talk about tonight, guys. This has been a great show. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 30.
33.
We're Horror Metal Cast. We're Joe's.
Yeah, we are.
Shit. And
We are Horror Metal Cast. We love you people a lot. And we're going to keep talking about ghosts and all kinds of shit in the coming weeks to come. So keep your eyes open. I got shows coming up. I I got shit going on, and so does Stevie. She's got book stuff going on, and I got gig stuff going on, and we got shit going. So you guys had better come up here and look at this stuff, and you better watch what we do. And I'm watching. I can see you guys. I got a phone now. I can get close to this with an eyeball. Yeah, it's creepy. Very creepy stuff. We're going to do more episodes on ghosts. That's a promise. Stevie, this show fucking rocked.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. Excellent to be back, and we love you guys. Mwah, talk to you all fucking soon.
Real quick, guys, make sure you check out all of Joe's music. DTA, make sure you check out my fucking books. Subscribe to our channel if you have not already. Subscribe, hit that little subscribe button, and don't miss out on past or future episodes. You guys rock. Fucking see you next week, Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, Bree Grimsley, and 6 p.m. Central time.
Bye, Bree. Thank you.
Everybody. Mwah. You guys rock.
Mwah.